Susan B. Anthony. Susan B. Anthony was a social reformer who lived from 1820 through 1906. She grew up as a Quaker, which is a Christian sect or Christian religion, a smaller religion, which greatly influenced her positions on life. Here's Susan Anthony. Like I said, she grew up as a Quaker. As a youngster, she was very much against she was very much against slavery, as an abolitionist. Her father had also been an abolitionist, and the religion she belonged to was against slavery also. So after the Civil War ended and she became older, she turned her attention to women's rights now that slavery had been abolished. And she dedicated the rest of her life to the goal of women's rights, and specifically, the right for women to vote, which is called suffrage, meaning the right for women to vote. And it was a very big cause in the late 1800s and early 1900s by Susan B. Anthony and a number of other reformers. One thing that is interesting is that voting rights had occurred by state by state, as a state by state goal and a state by state battle, really, the right for women to vote. So it became a major issue in all of the different states. And interestingly, some states made it legal long before it was legal as an entire country. So long before the United States of America had it as a national law, certain states already had voting rights for women in the late 1800s. So which states, I think, an interesting thing to think about is which states would you think got the first right to vote for women? Would it be the eastern states, the southeastern states, or the western states? So we may have discussed this before, but it's an interesting thing to think about. Eastern states or western states? Well, okay, so here's your answer. The fact of the matter is that the western states were much more likely to have made voting legal for women. You can see some of the dates here, such as Utah and Wyoming. And so these states were some of the early states, and then the eastern states were by far less likely to have women's right to vote. And that's something for historians to ponder the reasons for that. May have been the more rugged lifestyle of living in the West, and women were more likely to want the right to vote and push for that through the rugged lifestyle as compared to the eastern states, which were more urban and city, and life wasn't nearly, well, it was rugged in a different way, as we talked about. So for whatever the reason, the western states were first, but the problem was many states still didn't have the right to vote, and reformers such as Susan B. Anthony wanted a national law in which all states, women had the right to vote. See here again, you see some of the early states were Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, and Idaho, long before it became an amendment to the Constitution. Okay, so one more map showing that the vast areas of the South and the East are the peach color, which those states, women got the right to vote only after the 19th Amendment was passed. So Susan B. Anthony's goal was to get an amendment passed, which would give the right to vote to women in all states. And she was that segment of the women's rights movement that believed that it was for a higher cause, a higher reason, that all people are created equal, um, almost as very much attached to natural law. This idea that all people are created equal, and that it's like an abstract right that all people should have the right to vote. And so that was what that segment of the women's movement was, the segment that she belonged to, and that was a very powerful segment of the women's movement. We've talked before about women's movement wanted the right to vote in order to change the world, like say Jane Addams or some of the other reformers wanted the right to vote for women to create vote for candidates who would have the 8-hour workday or more safe workplace. So there was a variety of segments, but it all came together with the 19th Amendment, which was eventually passed in 1920. And here, Susan B. Anthony Shirley was one of the key figures in the creation of the 19th Amendment and a national right for women to vote in every state. And she wanted to achieve that goal as a higher ideal. So she did not actually live to see that, but she certainly set many things in motion that led to that happening. And actually, it did occur almost 14 years after her death. So after she died at the age of 86. So yeah, she lived from 1820 through 1906. And the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920. And see, there is the coin, the Susan B. Anthony $2 coin.